The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Commander Zefter looked out through the viewing port of his ship and saw nothing but empty void. 300 years had passed since the last human message reached the galaxy. 300 years since Earth went silent forever. His ship, the Velian Explorer, moved slowly through what humans once called the Sol System. The star that once gave life to their homeworld now burned dim and weak. Around it floated the broken pieces of old space stations and dead satellites. They spun slowly in the darkness like metal ghosts. Zefter was not human. His people, the Velians, had blue skin and 4 arms. They were peaceful explorers who loved to study old things. The Galactic Coalition had sent him here to look for anything the humans left behind. Museums across the galaxy wanted human objects to show their visitors. "Commander," called his second officer, Velena. She pointed at her scanner screen. "I am reading something strange near the big asteroid field." Zefter walked over to look. His 4 eyes focused on the display. "What kind of strange?" "It looks like a ship, sir." "A very big ship? But the metal is wrong?" "It does not match any of our records." The commander felt his heart beat faster. "Could it be a human ship?" Most human vessels had been destroyed in the Great War 3 centuries ago. The few that survived had been taken to museums or broken apart for study. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But stay ready to run if we need to." The explorer moved toward the asteroid field. As they got closer, Velena gasped, "Commander, look at the size of that thing." Through the viewing port, they could see a massive ship floating in the shadow of a huge asteroid. It was bigger than any vessel in the Coalition fleet. The hull was dark gray with strange markings painted on the side. Even from a distance, they could see it was built for war. "Can you read those symbols?" Zefter asked. Velena worked at her computer for several minutes. "Yes, sir. It says UES Defiance in human letters. There are more words below, but they are too faded to read clearly. They use Defiance." Zefter had heard that name before in his history studies. It was supposed to be one of the last human warships ever built. According to the records, it had vanished during the final battle for Earth. Everyone assumed it had been destroyed. "Commander," Velena said, her voice shaking, "I am getting energy readings from that ship. That cannot be right." "Check your instruments." Velena checked everything twice. "No, sir, the readings are correct. There's power flowing through that vessel. Something inside is still working." Zefter stared at the ancient warship. How could anything still be alive after 300 years? Human ships were tough, but not that tough, unless— "Sir, we are being scanned," reported the navigation officer. "The scan is coming from the human ship." Before Zefter could respond, every warning light on his bridge started flashing red. A loud alarm filled the air. Then a voice spoke in perfect galactic standard language. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. This is a military warning zone. Turn around and leave immediately, or we will take action against you." The voice was cold and mechanical, but definitely coming from the human ship. Zefter asked. Crew looked at him with fear in their eyes. No one had heard a human voice in 3 centuries. They were supposed to be extinct. "This is Commander Zefter of the Galactic Coalition," he broadcast back. "We are here on a peaceful mission to study human artifacts. We mean no harm." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again. "Commander Zefter, you are ordered to withdraw beyond the asteroid belt. You have 1 hour to comply. Any attempt to approach this vessel will be considered an act of war." "Act of war?" Velena whispered. "But the humans are all dead." Zefter watched as lights began turning on all over the huge warship. Weapon ports that had been dark for centuries started to glow with deadly energy. The ship that looked like a floating tomb was waking up. "Sir, should we call for help?" asked the communications officer. "Yes," Zefter said quietly. "Send a message to Coalition Command. Tell them we have found something impossible. Tell them the humans might not be as dead as we thought." As his crew worked to send the urgent message, Zefter kept watching the Defiance. More lights came on every minute. The ship was stretching like a giant beast. Waking from a very long sleep, He thought about the human wars he had studied in school. Humans were known for being fierce fighters who never gave up. They had fought each other for thousands of years before they reached the stars. When the Kethmari swarm invaded their system, humans had fought them with a violence that shocked the entire galaxy, but the war had ended 300 years ago. Earth was gone, the human colonies had fallen one by one. The galaxy had moved on and forgotten about the aggressive little species that had burned so bright and died so young. Now, floating in the cold darkness, was proof that maybe the humans were not as gone as everyone believed. The Defiance hung in space like a sleeping dragon, and Zephyr had the terrible feeling that something very dangerous was about to wake up. "Commander," Velena said softly, "what do we do now?" Zephyr looked at the ancient warship one more time. Whatever was inside that vessel had been waiting in the dark for 3 centuries. Now it was awake, and it did not seem happy to have visitors. "We wait," he said finally. "And we hope that whatever comes next, we are ready for it?" Deep inside the used Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison felt the cold slowly leaving his body. His eyes opened for the first time in what felt like minutes, but his computer told him was much longer. The cryogenic pod around him hissed as it opened, filling the small chamber with warm air. "Welcome back, Captain Morrison," said a calm female voice. "I am sorry to wake you, but we have visitors." Jake sat up slowly, his muscles stiff and sore. The voice belonged to Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. She had been his companion for the last few months of the war, back when Earth was still fighting. "How long was I out, Arya?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. 312 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Captain." Jake froze. "What did you say?" "You have been in cryogenic sleep for over 3 centuries, sir. I kept you and the crew in suspension while I maintained the ship. I was waiting for orders from Earth Command, but no orders ever came." The truth hit Jake like a physical blow. He remembered now, the final battle, the evacuation order that never came. His decision to put the crew in cryosleep while they waited for rescue. But 300 years? Arya, what happened to Earth? There was a pause before the AI answered. "Earth fell to the Kethmari swarm 6 months after you entered suspension, Captain. All human colonies were destroyed within 2 years. According to galactic records, humanity is extinct." Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Everyone he had ever known was dead. His wife, his children, his parents, his friends, all gone. The entire human race wiped out while he slept. "But sir," Arya continued, "you and 22 other crew members are still alive. I have maintained your life support systems and kept the ship hidden in this asteroid field. You are not alone." Jake stood up from the pod and walked to a nearby mirror. His reflection looked exactly the same as it had 3 centuries ago. The cryogenic process had stopped his aging completely. He was still 35 years old, but now he was possibly the oldest living human in the galaxy. "Show me the crew manifest," he said. Arya displayed a list on the wall screen. 23 names, including his own. Lieutenant Lisa Grant, his tactical officer and the best gunner in the fleet, Dr. Alex Murphy, the ship's doctor who could fix anything from a broken bone to a damaged heart. Sergeant Pete Davis, the Marine commander who had never lost a fight. Engineers, scientists, communications experts, and soldiers. All of them sleeping peacefully in their pods, unaware that they were the last humans alive. "Captain, we have a problem," Arya said. "There's an alien ship watching us. They claim to be from something called the Galactic Coalition. They want to board us." Jake walked to the bridge, his bare feet silent on the metal floor. Through the main viewing screen, he could see a small alien vessel keeping its distance. It looked harmless enough, but Jake had learned never to trust appearances. "What do they want?" "They say they are here to study human artifacts for their museums. They seem to think we are an empty derelict ship." Jake almost laughed. A museum piece. That was what humanity had become to the galaxy. Ancient history, too. Studied and displayed. "Are they armed?" "Lightly, sir. Their weapons are no match for our systems. But, Captain, they have sent a message to their fleet. More ships will be coming." Jake sat down in his command chair. It felt strange to be back after so long, but also familiar. This bridge had been his home during the worst days of the war. Now it might be his home for whatever time he had left. Arya, wake up the senior staff, Lisa, Alex, and Pete first. I need to talk to them before we decide what to do. Yes, Captain. But sir, there is something else you should know. I have been monitoring galactic communications for 3 centuries. The aliens out there, they do not remember humans the way we really were. Their history books say we were weak and destroyed ourselves in civil wars. They think we were primitive and violent. Jake's jaw tightened. Is that what they believe? Yes, sir. They pity us. They think we were too stupid and aggressive to survive. Some of their museums have displays that show humans as examples of how not to build a civilization. The captain stared out at the alien ship. So that was humanity's legacy. 300 years after Earth's fall, they were remembered as failures. Weaklings who could not even protect their own homeworld. Captain Morrison, came a weak voice from behind him. He turned to see Lieutenant Lisa Grant walking onto the bridge, still wearing her cryogenic suit. Her blonde hair was messy and her blue eyes looked confused. Lisa, Jake said, standing up to greet her, how do you feel? Like, I got hit by a transport ship, she said with a tired smile. Arya told me everything. Is it really true? Are we the only ones left? Before Jake could answer, Dr. Alex Murphy and Sergeant Pete Davis entered the bridge. Both men looked as confused and tired as Lisa, but they moved with the steady confidence of professional soldiers. Gentlemen, Jake said, I wish I had better news to give you, but Arya has filled you in on our situation. We are the last humans alive, and we have company. Pete looked out at the alien ship and cracked his knuckles. What are they waiting for? Orders from their fleet, probably, Lisa said, checking the tactical display. Captain, our weapons are still online. We could destroy that ship before it knows what hit it. And then what? Alex asked. Kill every alien in the galaxy? There are billions of them and 23 of us. Jake held up his hand for silence. Right now, they think we are just an old empty ship. They have no idea we are still alive. That gives us an advantage. What kind of advantage? Pete asked. The captain looked at each of his officers. These people had followed him through the worst battles of the human war. They had trusted him with their lives then, and they were trusting him now. They think humans were weak, Jake said quietly. They think we destroyed ourselves because we were too stupid to survive. They remember us as failures. So? Lisa asked. Jake's eyes grew cold. So we are going to remind them why the galaxy once feared the human race. We are going to show them that reports of our death have been greatly exaggerated. The bridge of the UES Defiance hummed with quiet activity as the remaining crew members woke from their long sleep. Captain Jake Morrison watched as 19 more humans took their positions at stations that had been empty for 3 centuries. Each face showed the same mixture of confusion, grief, and growing anger as they learned the truth about their situation. Lieutenant Lisa Grant sat at the weapons console, her fingers dancing over controls she had not touched in over 300 years. The systems responded instantly, as if they had been waiting for her return. All weapon systems are online, Captain, she reported. Plasma cannons, railguns, and quantum torpedoes are ready to fire. Dr. Alex Murphy moved between the crew members, checking their health after the long cryogenic sleep. Most were weak and tired but alive. Everyone will need time to recover fully, he told Jake quietly, but we can function if we have to. Sergeant Pete Davis stood near the back of the bridge with 5 other Marines. They had already changed into their combat uniforms and carried their weapons. Pete's scarred face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with cold fury. Just give us targets, Captain, he said simply. Jake nodded and turned to the main screen. The alien ship was still keeping its distance, but Arya had detected more vessels jumping into the system. How many ships are coming? He asked. 12 vessels so far, Captain, Arya replied. The largest appears to be a coalition battleship. They are taking positions around the asteroid field. Jake studied the tactical display. 12 ships against 1. In the old days, before the war, those odds would have worried him. Now they just made him angry. "Captain Morrison," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Commander Zefter of the Galactic Coalition. We know you are alive in there. We want to talk." Jake looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. These 22 people were all that remained of the human race. Everything their species had ever been, everything they had accomplished, now rested on the shoulders of the people in this room. "Put me through, Jake." "Side, Commander Zefter," Jake said into the microphone. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. State your business in human space." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned, sounding confused. "Captain Morrison, there is no more human space. Your species has been extinct for over 3 centuries. We are here to recover historical artifacts and study any survivors for scientific purposes." Several crew members made angry sounds at hearing themselves described as artifacts and test subjects. Jake held up his hand for quiet. "Commander, I am going to explain this once," Jake said, his voice calm but deadly cold. "You are in the Sol System, which belongs to humanity. You and your ships have 1 hour to withdraw beyond the asteroid belt. If you do not leave, we will consider your presence an act of war." The alien commander's voice came back quickly. "Captain, you must understand, there are only a few of you left. We can offer you protection, medical care, and comfortable lives in our research facilities. You would be treated well and honored for your contribution to galactic science." Lisa looked up from her weapons console. "Captain, they want to put us in cages like zoo animals." Jake's expression grew even colder. "Commander Zefter, let me make something clear. We are not museum pieces. We are not test subjects. We are the crew of a human warship, and we do not surrender. You have 55 minutes to leave our space." "Captain Morrison, please be reasonable. We have 12 ships and you have 1. Even if your vessel is advanced, you cannot win against such odds." Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Commander, you clearly do not know much about human military history. We have faced worse odds than this and won. Ask your historians about the Battle of Thermopylae or the Alamo or Stalingrad. Humans do not surrender when we are outnumbered. We fight harder." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "Aria, broadcast my next message on all frequencies. I want every Coalition ship in 10 light years to hear this." "Ready when you are, Captain." Jake stood up from his command chair. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a man who had commanded starships in the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance, speaking to all Coalition forces in this system. 300 years ago, your predecessors invaded human space and destroyed our worlds. You thought you had wiped us out completely. You were wrong." He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. Every face showed the same determination he felt. "We are the last guardians of humanity, and we will not go quietly into the night. We will not be studied in your laboratories or displayed in your museums. We are soldiers of Earth, and we remember what it means to fight for our people." Jake's voice grew louder and more forceful. "You have 45 minutes to leave this system. If you choose to stay, then you will learn why the galaxy once trembled at the mention of the human fleet. We may be the last of our kind, but we are still human, and we will show you what that means." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Then Pete Davis began to clap slowly. One by one, the other crew members joined in until the entire bridge rang with applause. "Orders." "Captain?" Lisa asked, her hands hovering over the weapons controls. Jake sat back down in his command chair and watched the Coalition ships on the tactical display. Some were beginning to move away, but others were holding their positions. "We wait," he sighed quietly. "And if they decide to test us, we remind them why humanity ruled half the galaxy before the Kethmari came." Dr. Murphy moved to Jake's side. "Captain, are you sure about this? Once we start shooting, there will be no going back. The entire galaxy will know we survived." Jake nodded slowly. Alex, they already know we survived. The question now is whether they will remember us as the species that fought to the bitter end, or as the species that gave up and became museum displays. He looked out at the stars that had once belonged to his people. Somewhere out there were human colonies that had been destroyed, human worlds that had been conquered, human lives that had been lost. The Defiance and her crew were all that remained of that mighty civilization. "We are the ghosts of humanity," Jake said quietly, "and it is time to haunt our enemies." Admiral Crixina of the Coalition Fourth Fleet stared at the human ship on his main screen. The vessel looked ancient and damaged, floating like a metal corpse in the asteroid field. How could something so old threaten his modern fleet of 12? "Warships?" "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the human ship is powering up weapon systems. Energy readings are off the scale." Crixina was a Xenthari, a proud warrior race that had never lost a space battle. His people had fought in 100 wars and always emerged victorious. One ancient human ship would not change that record. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "That relic has been floating in space for 3 centuries. Their weapons are probably as old as their ship. We will disable them quickly and capture the survivors." On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the Coalition ships spread out in a classic battle formation. He had seen similar formations during the war, and he knew exactly how to destroy them. "Lisa, what do you have on sensors?" he asked. Lieutenant Lisa Grant studied her tactical display. 12 ships, Captain. 1 battleship, 4 cruisers, and 7 destroyers. They are using standard Coalition attack patterns from their training manuals. Jake almost smiled. The Coalition was fighting by the book, using the same predictable tactics they had probably used for decades. During the war against the Kethmari, humans had learned to be creative, to use every dirty trick and desperate strategy they could. "Think of their mistake," he said quietly. "Pete, get your Marines ready for boarding actions. Alex, stand by for damage control. Everyone else, prepare for combat." The Coalition fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Admiral Crixina felt confident as his ships closed the distance. The human vessel had not moved from its position near the asteroid field. It was probably too old and damaged to maneuver properly. "Admiral, the human ship is hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Put them through." Captain Morrison's voice came over the speaker system. "Admiral Crixina, this is your last chance to withdraw. Leave now or face the consequences." Crixina laughed. "Captain Morrison, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now and your crew will be treated well." "Admiral," Jake replied, his voice calm and cold, "you are about to learn why humans were once the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Attack when ready." The communication ended. Crixina turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, open fire. Disable their engines and weapons, but try not to destroy them completely. We need those humans alive for study." 12 Coalition ships opened fire at once. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Defiance. It looked like enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Then something impossible happened. The Defiance moved. The ancient human warship suddenly burst from its hiding place among the asteroids like a hunting cat attacking its prey. It was fast, faster than any ship that size should be able to move. The Coalition weapons missed their target completely, striking empty space or exploding harmlessly against asteroids. "What was that?" Admiral Crixina shouted. "How can something that old move so quickly?" Before anyone could answer, the Defiance fired back. The human ship's weapons were unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen. Beams of pure energy tore through enemy shields like they were made of paper. Quantum torpedoes created explosions that twisted space itself. The ship's point defense systems shot down incoming missiles with perfect accuracy. In the first 30 seconds of combat, 2 Coalition destroyers were completely destroyed. A third was cut in half by a weapon that seemed to slice through metal like a knife through soft cloth. "Impossible," Crixina whispered. "Their technology is 300 years old. How can they be this powerful?" On the Defiance bridge, Lisa Grant worked her weapons controls with deadly skill. Direct hit on the lead cruiser, Captain. Their shields are down and they are venting atmosphere. Good shooting, Jake replied. Arya, target their command ship next. The artificial intelligence's voice was calm and precise. Target locked, Captain. Firing quantum disruptors. The Coalition battleship, Admiral Crixina S flagship, shuddered as the human weapon struck its hull. Warning lights flashed across. The bridge's systems failed one by one. Damage report. Crixina shouted. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15, his engineer reported. Main engines are offline. Weapon systems are failing. Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral Crixina, you now have 9 ships left. Would you like to make it 8? But the Coalition Admiral was a proud warrior. Even facing defeat, he would not surrender. All ships, continue the attack. Ram them if you have to. The remaining Coalition vessels pressed forward, firing everything they had. But the Defiance was like a ghost ship, appearing and disappearing among the asteroids, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before the enemy could return fire. Dr. Alex Murphy worked frantically at his damage control station. Captain, we have minor hull damage on the port side, but all systems are functional. Excellent, Jake replied. Pete, take your boarding team to Shuttle Bay 2. We are going to capture that battleship. Sergeant Pete Davis grinned fiercely. With pleasure, Captain. As the battle raged, the human Marines launched in a small shuttle toward the damaged Coalition flagship. They moved through the debris field like experienced hunters, avoiding enemy fire and using the wreckage as cover. Admiral Crixina watched in horror as human soldiers cut through his ship's hull with weapons that burned through metal like acid. Within minutes, they were inside his ship, fighting their way toward the bridge. How are they doing this? He asked his tactical officer. They should not be this good at warfare. The officer, a young Velian named Takra, looked up from the scanner readings. Admiral, I have been studying human military history. These people fought wars for thousands of years before they reached space. They are not just soldiers, sir. They are warriors. The difference became clear as Pete Davis and his Marines reached the battleship's bridge. They moved with the confidence of fighters who had been born for battle. Every action was precise and deadly. They took control of the ship in under 10 minutes. Back in space, the Defiance continued its deadly dance among the remaining Coalition ships. Lisa Grant's weapons found their marks with mechanical precision. One by one, enemy vessels were destroyed or disabled. Captain, Arya reported, we have destroyed 6 enemy ships and captured 2 others. The remaining 4 vessels are retreating. Jake watched the fleeing Coalition ships on his tactical display. The battle was over. 12 modern warships had been defeated by 1 ancient human vessel and its crew of 23 people. Let them go, he said quietly. They will carry word of what happened here back to their leaders. Dr. Murphy looked up from his station. Captain, we did not lose a single crew member, minor injuries only. Jake nodded, but his expression remained serious. This was just the beginning, Alex. When word of this battle reaches Coalition Command, they will send everything they have against us. Lieutenant Grant turned from her weapons console. What do we do then, Captain? Jake Morrison looked out at the stars that had once belonged to his people. The galaxy thought humanity was dead, but today they had learned otherwise. Today, they had remembered why humans were once feared across the known worlds. We remind them, he said quietly, that human ghosts are the most dangerous kind of ghost. We take the fight to them. As the Defiance moved away from the battlefield, leaving behind the burning wreckage of the Coalition fleet, Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. They would not hide anymore. They would not run. They would show the universe that humanity was far from extinct. The last humans were going to war. 6 months after the battle in the Sol system, the name Defiance had become a whisper of terror throughout Coalition space. The ancient human warship appeared without warning at military bases, space stations, and fleet anchorages across a dozen star systems. Each attack followed the same pattern: swift, brutal, and devastating. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, studying reports from their latest raid on a coalition supply depot. His crew had grown stronger and more confident with each victory. They were no longer the confused survivors who had awakened from cryosleep. They were warriors fighting for the memory of their dead species. "Captain," Lieutenant Lisa Grant reported from her tactical station, "we destroyed 12 supply ships and captured enough weapons to arm a small fleet." "No coalition casualties this time, as ordered," Jake nodded. His strategy was simple: destroy military targets but avoid killing enemy personnel when possible. Dead aliens would make the coalition angry. Living aliens who spread stories about human superiority would make them afraid. "Arya, show me the intelligence reports," he said. The ship's artificial intelligence displayed data on the main screen. "Captain, our raids have had the desired effect. Coalition morale is dropping rapidly. Several species are questioning their membership in the Alliance. More importantly, we have confirmed the existence of human survivor communities on 47 worlds." This was the real purpose of their campaign. During their attacks, the crew of the Defiance had discovered something that changed everything. Humanity was not extinct. Small groups of humans had survived the fall of Earth, scattered across the galaxy as slaves, refugees, or hidden colonists. Dr. Alex Murphy walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad. "Captain, I have been in contact with the survivor community on Kepler Station. They report over 3,000 humans living in the lower levels of the mining facility. The coalition does not even know they exist." Jake felt a spark of hope that he had not experienced since awakening. 3,000 humans. It was not many compared to the billions who had died, but it was a start. "What about the other locations?" he asked. "We have confirmed survivor populations on 31 worlds so far," Alex replied. "Most are small groups, a few hundred people at most, but Captain, they remember. They remember Earth, they remember the war, and they remember what it means to be human." Sergeant Pete Davis entered the bridge with 2 of his Marines. They had just returned from a rescue mission that freed 200 human slaves from a coalition prison ship. "Captain," Pete reported, "the rescued humans are asking to join our crew. They want to fight." Jake shook his head. "We cannot take them with us, Pete. The Defiance is a warship, not a transport, but we can give them weapons and training." Over the past months, the crew had been secretly arming human survivor groups across the galaxy. Former slaves became guerrilla fighters. Hidden colonists became saboteurs. Refugees became spies. The supposedly extinct human race was slowly awakening. "Captain," Arya interrupted, "I am receiving an urgent communication from Coalition Central Command. They are offering to negotiate." Jake almost laughed. 6 months ago, the Coalition had considered humans to be extinct museum pieces. Now they wanted to talk. "Put them through," he said. The main screen showed a Zenthari admiral in full military dress. His 4 eyes looked tired and worried. "Captain Morrison," the admiral said, "I am Admiral Vexstar, Supreme Commander of Coalition Defense Forces. I believe it is time we discussed terms for peace." "Terms?" Jake replied, "Admiral, we are not at war. We are simply reclaiming what was stolen from us. Captain, your raids have disrupted trade routes across 12 sectors. Coalition member species are demanding protection from human attacks. This situation cannot continue." Jake studied the alien commander. Vexstar was trying to sound strong, but his voice carried the tone of a leader under pressure. "Admiral, let me be clear about our position," Jake said. 300 years ago, your coalition invaded human space and destroyed our civilization. You thought you had wiped us out completely. You were wrong." He paused and looked around at his crew. 23 people who had become the symbol of human resistance across the galaxy. "We are no longer fighting for territory or resources, Admiral. We are fighting for recognition. The galaxy will acknowledge that humanity survived, that we are a legitimate species with rights and territory." Admiral Vexstar shifted uncomfortably. "Captain, even if we agree to your demands, you are still just one ship with a handful of crew members. How can you represent an entire species?" Jake smiled coldly. "Arya, activate the resurrection protocol." The artificial intelligence had been preparing for this moment for months. Across the galaxy, every piece of human technology that had been salvaged by coalition museums, research facilities, and private collectors suddenly came online simultaneously on the museum world of Centauri Prime. A human exploration ship broke free from its display moorings and began broadcasting human identification codes. On the research station Omega-7, human computers that had been studied for centuries activated their security systems and locked out all non-human users. Human-built mining equipment on dozens of worlds stopped working and began transmitting the same message: humanity endures, humanity remembers, humanity returns. Most shocking of all, human technology that had been integrated into coalition ships and stations began asserting its independence. Weapon systems refused to fire on human targets. Navigation computers started plotting courses toward known human survivor communities. Admiral Vexstar stared at his tactical display in shock as reports flooded in from across coalition space. "What have you done?" "We built our technology to serve humanity, Admiral," Jake explained. "Even after 3 centuries, that loyalty remains. Every piece of human equipment in the galaxy just remembered who its real masters are." The true scope of human survival became clear as survivor communities across the galaxy emerged from hiding. They had been there all along, living in the shadows and working in the background. The coalition had used human slaves to maintain their ships, human engineers to design their stations, human scientists to advance their technology. Now those hidden humans were revealing themselves, and they were not alone. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Vexstar said, his voice shaking, "what do you want?" Jake stood up from his command chair. Outside the viewing ports, he could see the stars that had once belonged to his people. Soon, they would belong to humanity again. "What we want is simple, Admiral," Jake said. "We want our home back." He gestured to the tactical display showing coalition space. Red dots marked locations where human technology had activated, where survivor communities had revealed themselves, where the supposedly extinct human race was rising from the ashes. "We want the Sol system returned to human control. We want official recognition of humanity as a sovereign species. We want reparations for 300 years of slavery and occupation. And we want guarantees that no coalition force will ever again set foot in human space without permission." Admiral Vexstar looked at the reports still flooding in from across his territory. Human uprisings were spreading like wildfire. Coalition ships were stranded as their human-built components refused to function. Space stations were going dark as their human-designed systems shut down in protest. "Captain, even if we agreed to these terms, how do I know you can control your people? How do I know this uprising will stop?" Jake looked around at his crew one more time. Lisa Grant at her weapons station, ready to fight any enemy. Dr. Alex Murphy coordinating with human survivor groups across the galaxy. Sergeant Pete Davis and his Marines, preparing for whatever battles lay ahead. "Because, Admiral, we are not conquerors," Jake said quietly. "We are liberators. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We just want our place in it." He turned back to face the alien commander. "But make no mistake. If the Coalition chooses to fight us, we will remind you why humanity once controlled half the known galaxy. We have survived extinction, slavery, and 3 centuries of being forgotten. We will not be erased again." Dr. Murphy stepped forward. "Captain, I am receiving reports from human communities on over 200 worlds. They are all asking the same question. What are our orders?" Jake thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. He had awakened from cryosleep to find his species extinct and his civilization destroyed. Now, just 6 months later, humanity was rising again across the stars. "Tell them to come home," he said simply. "Tell them that Earth may be gone, but humanity endures. Tell them that the Sol system is ours again, and we are ready to welcome our people back." Admiral Vexstar watched his tactical display as more and more coalition systems reported human uprisings. His military advisors were recommending immediate action, but he knew better. The coalition had fought the humans once before and barely won when humanity was divided and unprepared. Now they were united, organized, and very angry. "Captain Morrison," he said finally, "I will take your terms to the Coalition Council. But I need some gesture of good faith from your side." Jake considered this for a moment. "Very well, Admiral. We will cease all military operations against Coalition targets for 30 days while you consider our demands. But the human uprisings will continue until we have an agreement." "That is acceptable," Vexstar replied. "But Captain, what happens if the Council refuses your terms?" Jake Morrison looked out,